Blair Dacey, welcome to the interview podcast.
Thank you.
I don't actually know what this is. This is very informal rather than something vague. But so you are one of two women who received a conditional pardon from Governor Ralph Northam, who also pardoned me. And what's your story? Who are you?
I grew up down in Wilmington, North Carolina. It was a little beach town. When I first moved up here to Virginia, it was with my dad. Literally, the first three friends I made in high school were the people I got in trouble with.
Yeah.
So I just, back then I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings, the people I was around, and got caught up in a situation where, in my defense, like I thought I was sticking up for my friend and did not understand the consequences of that. So when I made my action, it caused another person to strike their head and pass away from something I did. And at the time, like I was 17, everybody else was 19, 20, 21. I was the youngest one there, and I really just didn't understand the world like I do now. I was the only one that was held accountable out of the whole situation. But when I went to prison, I was sentenced to 20 years, and that was a big blow for me. Like, my dad was an attorney. He was a state trooper for 17 years, and he had told me like that this wouldn't be happening. So when it happened, I didn't know what to do. And I was like everybody else. I went through the system, went through the appellate process. My family paid tens of thousands of dollars to try to get me home. None of it worked. So I started doing my own reading, my own research, looking into people's cases. And I was like, I need to file a conditional pardon.
Yep.
So I reached out to a senator who actually represented my co-defendant during the case. And I was like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Do you mind just like looking over it, making sure it's okay? My first draft was like 23 pages.
Okay.
I was passionate. It was during COVID too. So like we had no access to.
So wait, you didn't file yours until COVID?
Yeah.
Okay, so I filed mine in 2019 before COVID, like that, and mine was 2 years. How long did it take for you to get a response?
I got denied in 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So this is what's crazy. So it was unheard of because when you filed it, well, one, I was in the basement. I was locked in a basement in Goochland. They did not let us go outside because of like all the COVID stuff. So I had no way to type this thing. I had to handwrite it over and over again. Thank God for one of my friends, Diane. She is a lifesaver. She typed it for me when I sent it out to her. But I had Joe look over. He's like, Blair, you got to cut it down. Like at least 10 pages
Really?
max. Yeah. He's like, you got to cut this thing down. So I was like, okay. So I cut it down, sent it out. And it was May of 21. Yeah. May of 21. And I was like, okay. It was like the beginning of May. It usually takes people 2 to 3 years to hear an answer. I got a letter back in 3 weeks and I was like, what? Like, what is this? I opened the letter and it was a denial. It took me months and months of sitting there. I had to gather up so many letters from everybody. I handwrote so many things, and all my efforts and everything was just in the trash. So I made a call to Joe and I was like, hey, that I already got my denial. He's like, no, something's not right here. He's like, let me make a few calls.
Okay.
So next thing you know, he told me, he's like, yeah, they're going to do a reconsideration. I don't think it made it to the governor.
I've never heard of that before.
I'd never either. I was like, yeah, okay, they're just blowing smoke up Joe. They're not really serious. So I started to just forget about it and just get used to the fact that I got another 12 years to do because I hadn't been in it 8 years. And it was November, and I started to feel a little weird because somebody had looked it up online and it did say pending. Okay. So I was like, okay, maybe they are reconsidering, And then I literally was walking back from chow one day, and everybody on my hall was like banging on the window trying to get me to come inside, and I didn't understand what they were doing. I come up the stairs, they're like, Blair, you're going home. You're on the news. You're going home.
So you were on the news before you even found out?
I was on the news, and that's how I found out. And I was like, I started to cry. I was like, y'all, I'm so serious. Please don't mess with me. Like, please don't mess with me with that. Like, please. And they're like, Blair, it's on the news. You're going home. I'm getting chill bumps just thinking about that moment. Yeah. And next thing you know, they're like, I saw it on the news too. I was like, oh my God. But DOC didn't tell me till like 5 days later.
So I only had an hour and a half's notice. They literally like told me in the afternoon, an hour and a half later, I walked out. You had to wait 5 days before you heard anything official?
Official, but then they're like, oh, we need you to do reentry. So I have to pack up, go to reentry hall. Not even a few days after I'm on reentry, COVID. So our hall broke out with it. I was like, oh my God. So then I'm in Seg this is December of 21. I'm in Seg for Christmas and I'm locked down and I'm like, man, I want to be so grateful right now. But like, I'm so scared because if I do anything, like if I get a simple ticket or anything, this is gone.
Well, and for context, the governor was leaving the office January 11th.
Yeah.
So this is Christmas. You've got like 2 weeks to make this thing all work out.
Yeah, because then the stipulation was he wanted me to do the reentry program, which is 6 months. So I was scared because I was like, oh my God, I got this wonderful opportunity. But what happens when the next governor comes?
Exactly. Because do you know about Jens Soren, what happened to him? So he was granted a conditional pardon. He was going to be going home. And the first thing the new governor did was revoke that pardon. So that would be terrifying.
So in Jens too, like I have his co-defendant, Elizabeth.
You know Elizabeth, yeah.
She was like a mother to me. So like when I hear his name, I'm like, yeah. So, and it's kind of weird. Their Netflix documentary is like
Courtney, my ex, was in the Netflix documentary. There was top 10 in 10 countries. You were locked up with Elizabeth. I was locked up with Jens. It is a bizarre, small world.
It is so weird. Like another thing that's weird about that too, the bridge I cross right like by my house, it's dedicated to Mr. Blanton, which was Donna Blanton's husband. She was accused of killing her husband. He was a state trooper with my dad, actually.
Oh, wow.
I have to cross that bridge every day. She was my roommate. So like, it's so weird, the connections. But yeah, anyway, I was just so scared. Well, then I don't know what happened after that. All I know is one day I was supposed to be moving out of Seg because I was locked down all through Christmas. I had to eat my Christmas meal on the floor. We had nothing in Seg because we were sick with COVID. And they're like, hey, somebody in there that worked there was like, Dacey, just go ahead and pack your stuff. And I didn't, at first I was like,
you're getting out of Seg.
Are you serious? Like, and then I went to the other place. I had already had my stuff packed there. And one person was like, Dacey, your dad will be here at 4:00 to pick you up. I was like, oh my God, you can't be serious right now. And I just gave away everything. I was like, here, just everybody take it all, and came home January 4th of 22.
So what was like, because I gave all my stuff away too, and people wanted the TV because they didn't have it, and we couldn't even order TVs because commissary was messed up. What was the number one prize thing you had that people wanted?
My bras.
Okay.
So they stopped doing vendors in like, I think 2012 or something, 2013. So the Victoria's Secret bras were like prized possessions in there.
Okay.
And I had at least 5
So
that I had acquired over the years. And like in there, you get, if you find one and you find one for like $100,
you buy it. Oh,
wow. It doesn't matter if it doesn't fit because you're gonna make it fit. Like I learned how to alter things, and I had some bras in there. I was like, nah, give it to me. Like, but the bras and the makeup too.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. So for a long time, we had like transsexuals and individuals who would make makeup in the men's prison, but it was always like a chargeable offense. They would like get in trouble. It was an issue. And then there was a lawsuit, and all of a sudden they had to start selling makeup in the men's prison. And it makes sense to me. Like people wanted, why have different access? But that stuff became like gold because some of it was used for other things. It was used for like contraband. So people would pay the individual who's approved to order that, and they would get it, and then they would sell it on the black market and it would go around. So like, what was the makeup? What was the most valuable thing you guys had?
So between the makeup, hair clips, and the bras, if you knew somebody that had access or had stuff, I mean, all of my friends though that I was incarcerated with, they put me in a wing where everybody had been down for years.
Okay.
So naturally, like I made friends with all these people. I spent 24/7 with them. So some of my friends have been down for 30 years. And they just collected stuff over the years and they've just kept it and not used it. The smell goods, the makeup, hair clips, oh my God, were like a huge thing to have in there.
Okay.
Like you had to have hair clips. And if you had one, you could sell a hair clip.
So did people smuggle this in to visit?
Oh yeah, of course. Well, okay. I would say more of the employees than visit.
Because that was like sunglasses for us. You couldn't get sunglasses through the visit because there was no way to go back.
Yeah.
But the employees, they'd be like, yeah, cool, $50.
Yep.
They bring in sunglasses every day. That's $250 a week in sunglasses. It was. These are like $250 sunglasses from like a gas station. They were great.
Exactly. But everybody just was like, had to have them. Yeah. I didn't care for like the people that did all the drug activity because it's like people are in here trying to like make a lot, like start over. You know what I mean? And I thought it was really inconsiderate for some people to like feed off of that.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. So when I was in, there was a counselor who used to work at Fluvanna, and you were at Goochland, but And she said, yeah, there are no drugs in Fluvanna. Like the women have sex, they use that as their drug. So when did drugs start becoming so prevalent?
So it happened when this one warden, and he's a great warden, but I think it was not a good idea to put all the bad people in one pod. So
Wait, revise that statement. When you say bad people, what do you mean?
all of the people that choose to do drugs and choose to take advantage of other people and not care about the consequences. So like all of the inmates that are toxic to the rest of the healing culture. So these inmates specifically would be looking to take advantage of people, looking to use people, looking to get them hooked on drugs, looking to make money off of them.
Okay.
Me, honestly, like I consider that you're not really trying to help other people. You're trying to bring them down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he put all of those to try to like filter them out. He put them all in one wing. The people that just didn't care about anything.
Because that's the other thing. So in Virginia, we have like all these different levels of men's prison. You only have 2 women's prisons.
Yeah.
There's no like super high and super low and medium. You just have Fluvanna and Goochland, right?
Well, no, there's, I think they used to have 5.
Really?
Something like that. Now they have, I think, 3 to 4. I don't know if the other
Are they
one's
just
still
work centers
open.
or?
So State Farm is a work center.
Okay.
I've
been there.
Pocahontas is sort of.
I didn't know they had women at Pocahontas.
Oh, that's all it is.
Really?
Yeah.
There we go.
I was thinking about going to Pocahontas, but it's an open dorm, so I was like, not really feeling that.
So what about Goochland and Fluvanna? I thought Fluvanna was cells and Goochland was open. Is that not correct?
Not correct. Goochland is cells. They're actually really old, small cells.
Okay.
It's just a hallway and a day room.
Gotcha.
So being locked down on COVID in there was miserable. The only thing that was okay was like they didn't have cameras in the bathroom, so at least like you could kind of be sort of free there.
What were you doing in the bathroom?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, like people had some parties and stuff in the bathroom, but usually the officer will walk by and break things up. But like it's so weird to always be on camera, so it's nice to just go in there, look in the mirror, and just like get yourself ready without having somebody watching you all the time. But Goochland, so I had a lot more freedom there because it didn't have any fences. I was on the HVAC team, so, and I also helped cut grass and stuff like that. I mean, I would be out working. I was slinging a leader for 6 hours a day on an incline hill with grass as tall as me. Like I did some hard work there, but it was nice because some of the places we went to, we weren't always just on camera, always being watched.
Okay.
So you felt a little more free and you were treated a little better than Fluvanna, where it's like, you're just constantly like in a medical building, you know?
But also, I can't imagine there's not a single men's facility where somebody with 20 years could go and be no fences, outside the fence, outside doing whatever.
I think it's just men have a different, like women, they typically aren't going, I mean, where I worked, I could sit outside by myself right next to the train track. I'd wave at the train guy going by and he'd honk at me. And like, there was a river right there. Women, I don't think we are that, it's not that we aren't ballsy. It's just, we don't value, I don't even know how to say it, but like y'all would be like, okay, what's my plan to get out of here? You know, We're kind of like, well, we got kids or family to think about, you know, if I leave here, what's really going to happen for me, you know?
Well, let me ask you this. So I was never in a place without fences. I was always at a secure facility. But I have a couple friends who were in the Fed, sometimes with long years. And their number one thing was always to go out and like sneak out in the woods with their girlfriend. Their number 2 things was food for whatever reason. And the number 3 things was drugs.
Yep.
So what were the 3 biggest things that women would run out past the secure area for?
So I didn't really know anybody that did much of that.
Really?
It kind of wasn't, I mean, I knew some girls that had messed with some officers. That's really, girls in there, they weren't really focused on seeing their boyfriends out of there because they 9 times out of 10 had a girlfriend in there. Yeah. So it was more accepted for girls to be with girls. I can say the entire 8 years, like I never was with anybody sexually like that. And that was very, I'm not gonna lie, I almost thought about it one time because I was like, man, it's like.
Almost thought about it?
I almost thought about it.
You didn't think about it.
I almost thought about it. And because I was like, man, this sucks. But I always had like somebody to talk. Like I had somebody that was standing by me. And actually what's so weird is driving out here. My boyfriend at the time, I had met him when I was home waiting to go to trial. And he stood by me, stood up for me during my trial, was there for me the first 3 years. He died right here on 64.
Oh, wow.
It was on the news at the prison. He ran off the road where there's a rest stop over here in Albemarle County.
Yeah.
It's like a little small cutoff where the trucks are. And he somehow ran off the road and smacked a tractor trailer.
Wow.
So every time I go on 64, I have to pass this place. But it's so weird because he was going from Norfolk to Roanoke and just so happened to die right there in Fluvanna like area.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, you know, I always had somebody to usually talk to until that happened. And then I ended up going on a pen pal website.
Yeah, because I wanted to talk to you about relationships, because I had a few relationships. You had a few disastrous relationships.
Disasters. Like,
so, like, my experience is that you get like 3 types of women that are attracted to men in prison.
Mhm.
One is women who are just like, they're looking for something where they don't have to actually be physically near a person for whatever reason. And then they've been abused or they're super busy or whatever. 2 is there's like a lot of emotional instability. They're looking for something because they can't maintain a relationship on the outside. And the 3rd is just happenstance. Like you just happen to connect with this person, you know them from childhood, but it's not, you're not looking for somebody in prison. So what was it for women? Like what were the guys looking for when they connected with you on the inside?
So I'm not gonna lie, when I first heard about this pen pal thing, I saw these girls that were not cute. Like they were like really just strung out and on some bad things, but they posted these pictures of themselves when they were home.
Looking good.
So they had all of these guys reaching out to them. And I was like, man, like I wonder if anybody would talk to me, you know? So I went on the pen pal website. I'm not gonna lie, I used to write down every single name that would either send a letter, write an email, or send a letter or write an email. And in the first, like, I want to say 6 months, I think, I had like 1,000 names written down. So if I'm estimating, I probably this was like the last 3 to 4 years I was there. I probably had at least 3,000 people reach out.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And some actually were women that were just curious about life on the inside.
I can see that.
Like one of my friends, Alex, she's now a lawyer in New York. We were both talking about law school. She was in the process of getting into law school. Now she's graduated. Now she's doing her own thing. We're like we keep in contact, like seldom, but we still are cool. Some people just wanted to know what it was like.
Yeah.
And the guys though, I had a lot of military guys.
Sure.
I had a lot of guys that were just lonely and didn't know how to like socialize, I feel like. And then I had some guys I was like, well, what's wrong with them? Exactly. I don't know. Like, I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, like, why did they think to, because being out here, I'm like, I don't think I would think to reach out to
Those are the ones that would get me. It would be women who were like in the C-suite. They were like politicians. They were super successful.
Yeah.
We'd be like, why? Now, one of them made the most sense. She was like, I work 70 hours a week. I want somebody to talk to me and say something sweet to me before bed every night. That's all I want. I'll put money on your books. And I was like, cool, that makes a lot of sense. Like you're focused on your career. You don't want to waste your time with somebody. You just want that validation and emotional connection. That makes sense. But there were a lot of them where I was like, this is a big red flag.
Yeah, like I've had a lot of cops.
Oh, really?
A lot of cops. I actually had one guy, I never asked anybody for money, like per se. I just felt like I'm such an obligated person. So if someone does anything nice for me, I'll immediately feel like I'm so obligated. And I didn't want to get out and feel like I had to talk to people if I didn't want to talk to them.
Okay.
So this one guy, I was very honest with him. I was like, look, he actually was a lieutenant up in Chicago. And he was like, yeah, I just, I was like, look, I'm not interested in anything like that. I just want to be friends. And he was so appreciative of my honesty. He would send me like $100 a month for a little over a year.
Did you get the impression he was like kind of trying to cleanse his soul for something you'd done, or he was just like looking out because he liked you as a person?
You never really know.
Yeah.
But he still is up there. He still works for the force. He'll reach out like on holidays and be like, hope you're doing okay. You know, I had a lot of cops
That's
that wanted to date me. I had one in Alabama.
I've swiped on a couple police officers on Bumble.
Yeah.
And I've always been interested, and none of them ever met with me because I'm always upfront. I don't want to be like crazy. I was like, hey, I want to be really clear. Like, I've got a history. I'm not sure how this will go. But for me, it's just fascination. Like, I'm not even necessarily looking to date them. I just want to know, like, what is your experience? What do you think of this? Like, how do people see you?
Yeah.
I think it's so. Have you ever dated a cop?
So technically, there's been a lot of cops, and especially when I tell them my story, they're even more attracted.
Bad girl gone right.
So, but I just couldn't, at some point I was like, I don't think I can date a cop. Like, I like to be in the streets with my car. I don't know. I feel like I'm being a hypocrite if I do.
So what do you mean by be in the streets with your car? Tell us more, Blair.
Well, I love to like go to the racetrack. I love to be with the car people, and they're not always the best rule followers. They're just not. And it's not that necessarily I'm out there breaking rules or anything, but I do enjoy the car culture. And it's kind of hypocritical to be, because like the one thing they hate are cops. Like, you know, so it's a weird line because my dad was a state trooper for 17 years. So like, cops don't really bother me.
Okay.
Even with my experience, they don't really, I know that was an isolated thing. Like they don't really bother me. But at the other aspect, I don't know that I necessarily want to date one.
Have you ever been to the Wednesday motorcycle ride in Richmond?
No.
So my buddy invited me to this. He was like,
Okay.
come on, bro, come on out, come ride. It is wild. It's like four-wheelers in the street, popping wheelies, like racing cops, cutting cops off. Like, I remember, this is what I knew. There was a dude on a four-wheeler smoking a blunt, sitting next to a cop car, just having a conversation, no helmet, no tags, no anything. And I was like, wherever I'm at, I need to leave. Because this is clearly going to give me something back to play.
Exactly. Well, okay, so back to the pen pal thing though. So there were two people that I came across that actually talked to me for like the last 3 to 4 years that I was in there. One guy, he was in the military, he was in the Marines, he was in Northern Virginia, and he used to come like visit me on the holidays, on the week, like every other weekend. He put money on my books. And so he talked to me. I mean, I lived my life on the phone. I'm not going to lie. Like I was on the phone all the
Real quick,
time.
let me ask you, how many phones were in each pod?
It depends. So at Fluvanna, we had 6. But at Goochland, there was like...
So you had to like kind of fight for your phone spot and like...
I sat in the phone lines so many times. So many... Any arguments I ever got into were mainly just over the phones. Like, it was never, you know, either the phones or the girlfriends. That's what people argue over in the women's prison.
Because we had like fights and stabbings and jumpings and everything.
Over the phones. Yeah. So, especially with COVID, that made it so much worse. Because then they were limiting the amount of calls you can make in a day. And it was like, I mean...
Did you guys just use other people's numbers? That's what we always did. We'd just be like, cool, give me your account. Like, I'll give you fucking $10 a month and I'll use your calls.
Yeah. So... there was one guy, and then the other guy was also in the military. His name was Andrew, and he had reached out to me, and he was stationed in Norfolk but was going overseas to Japan. I even hand wrote him letters and stuff when he was on the boat. And yeah, like I thought I had this really great connection with somebody. We used to spend all this time on the phone, but I ended up choosing the first one when I went home because he was the one coming to visit me, putting money on the books. So I felt like he was a better choice. Well, I came home, and one thing you don't realize being in that situation is when someone spends so much time with you, they kind of expect a lot.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me is like when you spend so much time talking, when you get out, people want that much time.
That much time.
And even if you want to give it to them, it's just not possible.
It's not, yeah. So, and in the position he was in, like the way he worked and stuff, he had, and with his jobs, he could talk to me.
Yeah.
But when I first got out, I was still trying to learn how to be on the phone while driving. Like, people don't understand the very simple stuff. Like, when I was on the phone, I'm sitting there stationary in prison on the phone for 8 years.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about, like, multitasking. So when you come home and you're, like, driving again, and don't get me wrong, like, I was driving the last, like, year or two before I got out because I was driving the tractor at Goochland. But that's how I learned how to reverse a trailer.
Okay.
But, yeah, it was so weird coming home dealing with all that. And then this person, you know, there was a lot of red flags in the beginning about control and stuff like that. But I was just like, wow, this person's my age. His last name is Blair.
Is it really?
His last name is Blair. And I was very attracted to him. We had a really great connection, and he put forth so much effort. And I thought that was so cool. When I got out, he just was really adamant about me moving up there. I got in a whole situation. His ex-wife was still living at the house, like, and he was trying to move, and I should have just, but he made me feel like I had to move up there. And my family literally ditched me because I made that choice. And it hurt me so bad because they had always talked about for years, they couldn't wait till I was home, this and that. And because I made that choice, they ditched me.
Wow.
So that was really hard to deal with. And then the most important person to me died right after that. My Oma, and I sat by her bedside for like the 2 weeks while she was in hospice. And, you know, she was the person I wanted to pay back the most.
Yeah.
She was always there for me. And so I was dealing with my family acting the way they acted. And then when I got up there, this guy was just so, like, I was taking care of his child. I was cleaning. I was cooking dinner every night, making lunches every day. And he didn't really care for me to like have friends or enjoy life. He's like, oh, you just need to wait. I'm like, wait. I've been in prison for 8 years since I was 19 years old. Like, I don't
Well, let me ask you this. So you got out. Like, I know for me, partly, I was in there for 19 years.
Yeah.
And so I was out. I wanted to date. I wanted to do stuff. But I was in a relationship for that first year and a half. And I loved Courtney. I still love Courtney. But it was like, when we broke up, I was like, it's time to like have some experience. It's time to go through life. Did you do that? Or were you just right off the gate, you knew you wanted to be in a relationship?
I thought that my plan for myself was, or what I wanted, was to come home and have somebody. Because at that point, like I haven't been with anybody in 8 years.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have somebody that actually wanted to invest in me. And I thought I found that. And I did, but I'd have to be okay with a lot of other things. Yeah. So I was kind of not really robbed of that experience, but it was a very bad first year.
Yeah.
It just was not what I thought it was going to be. And I did want to be a wife. I did want to be, you know, I loved his daughter.
Yeah.
She was so sweet and I would do anything for her. But then it becomes, whenever you break up, oh, you know, she's missing you, this and that. So I put forth the efforts to drive 2 hours up there to see her. And then it's like, oh, well, you don't need to see her anymore. Okay, well, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it just was too much. And then I made the mistake after that of giving the second person a chance.
These prison relationships don't work out.
They do not work out. And people told me, they're like, Blair, these guys are reaching out to you in here. Like, there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you know. Well, then Andrew, he's like, you know, it really hurt me. You didn't choose me. These however many, you know. I'm just like, okay, dude, we can try this, but I'm not 100% sure.
And he was like states away. He wasn't
he was in
right?
Rhode Island. He was stationed out there, and he was like, oh, as soon as I get out, like, or we can go together and move these places, blah, blah, blah. So mind you, I'm flying out there for like the year of 23. I'm flying out there. He's flying out here. A lot of things didn't add up to me, but I really just appreciated that connection. He was the one that I truly, really wanted to be with. So I just cannot believe, though, that he literally had like 4 other girlfriends at the same time as me. And I just found out about it a few months ago. And he wanted to be on my credit card as an authorized user. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, well, he put money on the phone to talk to me for years. Of course. Like, if you need some help with credit, no problem. I didn't expect him to use it. Then he's like, oh, well, we can just use it for stuff we do together. And then I'll pay my part, you pay your part. And I was like,
it's like the red flag creeping up above the, yeah.
And because I had known him for like 4 years, I was like, okay, you know, no problem. Well, then it became the card balance getting higher, him making these small payments, then interest. And I was like, okay, bro. And then anytime I would say anything, he would like flip out and have a fit. And I'm like, it's not your credit. It's mine. You know, come to find out, I mean, I think it was December this past year. Right after I went to fly out to see him, right after I got back, like right after Christmas, I started getting sick. And I didn't understand why I was so sick. I went to urgent care and I had freaking mono.
Wow.
So I confronted him and I'm like, dude, I am like so sick from mono. What the fuck? You know what I mean? And he's like, oh, I was sharing some drink. Like, please get out of here with all that. And then this dude has the nerve, like, while I'm sick, and I just wanted him to install my audio. He's like, hey, my tire just blew up. Can you please help me? And I was like, honestly, like, I need to see the receipt because I don't know what you've been up to. So I helped him get some tires because I knew he was getting kicked out of the military for a whole other story he lied about.
Yeah.
Then I ended up connecting with this girl, and a couple of his girlfriends I found out about after, and I took them all from him. So I was like, okay, if you're gonna sit here, it's one thing to be in another state and to like want women, you know, some kind of female attention. That's one thing. That's like something you kind of expect from some guys. Like, It just is. And however, it's another thing to be breaking women down mentally.
And physically.
Yeah. I mean, the girl, that's how I found out about it. I saw on TikTok, on her TikTok, my boyfriend had destroyed her house and choked out her dog and her. And that was the real story of what happened while he was getting kicked out of the military. And it's one thing, like I said, to, you know, cheat on somebody. It's another thing to have multiple girlfriends that you're misleading, that you're breaking down mentally, you're beating them physically, and then take advantage of their position in life. He has one girl that's co-signed for the Jeep a couple of years ago. He's got another girl that's co-signed for the Hellcat. I was like, how did I miss such a loser?
So are any of the people that you met or the relationships you started in prison, have any of those turned into something like positive or friendships? Like you mentioned the police officer. Are there any others?
So I have a couple of people I still keep in contact with sometimes, but honestly, at this point, I just really kind of moved on and made new friends.
Yeah.
You know, I have a couple of friends that I knew before that like would answer the phone for me if I called when I was in there, but I've had just this really bad two experiences. So I'm like, I don't really want to, yeah.
Well, I want to talk to you about two things. I want to talk to you about work and dating after prison.
Okay.
Now, obviously, let's get past the two guys. But
Yeah.
We'll start with dating. What has it been like to go out and have to tell somebody on a first date or a second date or on a dating profile, hey, by the way, I spent 8 years in prison for killing a guy? Like,
Yeah. So it is really awkward, but I'd say it up front.
do you? Okay.
I don't really wait for anybody to talk to me. If I like somebody, I'll go talk to them first. I'm not shy. I'm not like hard to get. Like I'm not gonna act like I need a man to chase me.
Okay.
Do I want a man to be interested in me genuinely? Yes. But if I see something and I want it, then I'm gonna get it, you know? However, with some guys though, actually all the guys, when I tell them about my background, they like me more. I
Really?
don't
All of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay. I haven't had anybody that was like, you know what? But I think it's different with female. It would be different if I'd like stabbed my boyfriend or something.
Yeah, I could see that as being like a big red flag. But
Yeah. But when I explain the situation and they're like, wow, like, she really just didn't understand that. Like, I thought I was sticking up for my friend. I mean, this dude hit my female friend in front of me. Like, I didn't, realize when I saw him getting up at me, I didn't know what he was going to do to me. But I should have just made better choices, better friends. And, so when I explain the whole story, people are like, okay, that could have happened to me. That's what I get a lot. But I think it would be different if I had a different.
Well, even like in my case, because there's no justification. I committed a robbery and a shooting. There's been one person on a dating app who was just like nasty about it. I haven't had a single bad experience otherwise.
That's good.
I've told people I was like, hey, I really want to be upfront. Never had judgment, never had anything feedback. And it surprises me, but I think people respond to just authenticity. And that's one thing you are, is you're like, hey, this is who I am. Like me or hate me, this is who I am.
And I don't want it to come off like I need everybody to know. Some people were like, oh, well, maybe, you shouldn't tell people. And I'm like, you can Google me. Like, that's an awkward conversation.
Yours was like a front page. Like,
so I'm like, that would be weird if like I talk to somebody. I can only imagine because I can put myself in other people's shoes. And I'm like, well, what if I was talking to somebody? They didn't tell me about this big thing. And then I looked them up on social media and I'm like, whoa.
yeah.
Because I'm not shy about it. Like I'll tell anybody, if someone doesn't want to be around me because of that. And like, there is not many people in the world that got themselves out of prison. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
I am very proud of that. So if someone doesn't accept that, that's fine.
When it's like, your situation is complicated. It's very understandable why you did what you did. And you did the work to get yourself out. You kind of built this thing up. But what were you going to do? What was your career? What was your plan for the future? Because you were a kid when you went out.
So I didn't have a plan. Like I just wasn't making good decisions when I was younger. I had this boyfriend that was a loser and I just wasn't making good decisions, but I found what I wanted to do when I was in prison.
Okay.
I was so passionate about law school.
Okay.
So when I was in there, I got a scholarship. I got my associate's degree. Then I went on to do my bachelor's. And that was so hard because for the bachelor's degree, it was correspondence through the mail. Mm-hmm. So I had to do everything by myself. I had to read the textbooks. I had to study. There was no study guide. There was no like, hey, this is, and then I got the test 3 months later. So I had to keep all that information relevant before I got my exams. And that was so difficult, but I got through my junior year and then I came home. I still have like my senior year to do, but my plan was when I came home, I was supposed to move up to Northern Virginia and I was supposed to focus on going, finishing my schooling, going to law school. It just didn't work out that way. And I started to realize that I don't have a way, like my law school would be paid for, but how am I going to live?
Yeah.
Like my dad, he went to law school, he's very passionate about that. That's the one thing he would help me is law school. So I know that I have the resources, but how am I going to for 3 years when I just came home and I'm like, ooh, shiny objects, like all life is in my face and I want to enjoy it. Because I was so disciplined for years. I mean, I worked out every day. I did schooling every day. It's hard to just be okay with like being so disciplined again.
You're the first person I've heard to say that. That's a really good description.
Yeah.
Like I exercised, I meditated, I did everything right. And then I came home and I was, like you said, shiny things.
Everything. And then you see everybody else and I mean, there were so many years that I spent being like, oh man, that would be so much fun. Or hearing about this event and being like, oh, that would be so cool. How do you come home and just not do any of those things when they're
I agree.
easily available, you know? So it became a mixture of wanting to enjoy my life and then not having the, you know, ability. Cause I mean, how am I going to do law school if I need to work full?
Yeah.
That's not possible. And then here's the biggest thing that turned me off from it. I could do law school for 3 years. I could focus completely, discipline myself. And then when I go to take the state bar, if the Supreme Court deemed so, they could say, they could deny me from taking the state bar. So at that point I had to choose, okay, what do I do? Like, I'm single now. I need to get my own place. I need to not be like depending on other people. I have a dream, but right now my dream's just going to have to be.
Okay. So what did you do?
So I ended up, at first I was working for I was working for Joe Morrissey, and he's the one that helped get me out. And I was working at the Senate office for him, but it's just a lot of the politics and stuff. It just doesn't pay that well when you're first getting in.
Yeah.
So I was struggling to pay bills. So then I started picking up shifts at Red Lobster, and I was serving. Then when the General Assembly ended, I went and found a job with a nonprofit. But the thing is, again, it was a great, you know, it was called A Better Day Than Yesterday, and great organization. I loved helping people that were coming home from incarceration. But again,
Don't pay anything.
it doesn't pay well. And then I'm having to work nights and weekends serving. So I'm not living my life at all. Yeah. And I'm tired. So for what money, you know? So then I was like, I really love cars. Let me try to get in the car business. I just was worried I wasn't gonna be able to get my license. Well,
You didn't have your license at that point?
so there's a salesperson's license
Okay.
you have to get in Virginia. And I just didn't think they can disqualify you for being a felon.
Because you talked about that with law school. It's the same thing. I was looking at being a counselor. To be a licensed, you know, marriage and family counselor for whatever these things, you have to get a dispensation. Like, they can turn you down to be a lawyer, to be a counselor, to be a salesperson.
All these things.
To get my journeyman's. I know a guy who had the same charges as me when I went to get my journeyman's electrical license, who got turned down and I got approved. It was entirely arbitrary.
Yep. So it's hard because you're like, okay, I'm at a point in my life where I need to make money. I also am at a point in my life where I need to allocate my time to things that are going to make me money. And so do I go and get in the car business and then wait another month and then bills are stacking up? And, you know, like, do I go that way? I said, so I did. And I'm glad I did. I got into the business. I started out at Hart Nissan, and I did well until like the car market took a dive. And so not many people were like, look, and the area I was into and all that, and I was driving the distance. So I got in with a Chevy dealership, and I've been doing pretty well with them.
Okay. So what is the advice you would give someone coming out of prison or coming out of an abusive relationship or just starting over? Like, what was it that helped get you through, and what would you tell somebody else to do?
I feel like it's been 2 years and 4 months since I've been home. And this last 2 months, I've finally found myself.
Okay.
The first thing is relationships are going to come and go.
God, I was just talking to someone.
Like, I've wasted so much time being so wrapped up and distracted by relationships. And it's like, what did that do for me now? Luckily, I was able to persevere and still get up and do what I needed to do, but I didn't always want to.
Yeah.
And I could have been in such a better position now if I would have just got home and focused on myself and focused on being okay with getting things on my own.
Did you ever meet Trudy?
Trudy Harris?
Yeah.
No.
She was the pardon investigator who did all the investigation for all of our pardons.
Yeah.
And I remember she contacted my mom when I was going home, and she said, my one piece of advice is tell him not to get a girlfriend. Don't date anybody. Don't waste his time.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky. I came out to a really stable, really positive relationship.
Yeah.
But everybody I've seen get in trouble, it's been behind a relationship.
Behind a relationship. And I mean, and I, you know, it was so hard for me because I didn't understand how much other people can affect you until you're on the outside looking at other people's relationships. And then you're like screaming to them, oh, like, don't do this. Like, don't, you know, and then you do it yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to separate because I'm such a feeling person, and I'm empathetic, I'm sympathetic, I'm all of it. And I want the best for somebody. But I also have been through so much in my life that when people disappoint me, I cannot handle. So I try to really now be so selective on who I let in. And sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, like, I abruptly am kind of like, I'm blunt with it. I don't want you in my life. Because if I see in the beginning that I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to lose myself and be somebody that I'm not, I'm good. Like, I'm good. You know, I've been through too much in my life, and I value being here in this moment, enjoying this time. Because I don't know if you remember, I think it was a year ago we did that with the nonprofit, the fashion show.
Yeah.
Yes, and for people that were coming home, and during that time period, I was so weighed down by relationships that like I couldn't even enjoy that experience.
It was weird to watch.
Yeah, like it was. Remember we went out to the ranch, and like I remember you saying, you're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like I'll say I'm okay, but was I really okay?
Didn't seem okay.
No. And it's what is so sad to me, what I have to remind myself daily. Why am I allowing people to take away this experience of being home? I dreamed about being home. Like I had lost that dream because I didn't think it was going to be possible for many years.
Yeah.
And then I finally get the opportunity and I'm like, why am I letting somebody?
So the way I usually describe it is I came out with a scarcity mentality. I didn't think I was going to have enough money. I didn't think I was enough. Every time I had a work opportunity, every time I had a dating opportunity, like I always wanted to jump on things because I thought they would be the last one. And I've had to relax and be like, you know what? It's a big world and there are a lot of people and there are a lot of jobs and there are a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
And the reality is like neither one of us has gone hungry in the last 2 or 2.5 years. Like we've been okay. We've been able to get dates. We've been able to get jobs. But it's easy to fall into that mentality of where like we scrambled for so many years that to trust is a difficult thing.
Well, and I feel like for me, there's a time clock too, because I want to be in a certain position in life. I want to have kids. I want to have a family. But so I try to rush into things to know in the very beginning, and I don't really want to sleep with a bunch of guys. Like that's a part of dating is like you start talking to somebody and then you figure it out or you don't, and I hate that part. I've met so many people. Now I'm at the point where I know what I want. And if I don't get that, that's okay. There will be somebody someday that will come along, and that's fine. I used to just settle for so many things and then look where it got me. Like in a group chat with 4 other women that were taken advantage of by this guy, like, yeah, I'm good. But I love my girls. Don't get me wrong. Like, let me say this. Hang on. I have to say it for the girls. So we are actually like besties now. So everybody always thinks like, oh, he'll never find somebody like me. No, he will find somebody just like you. The girls on my group chat are freaking, we have like personalities. We love talking to each other. We love like cars. We all like the same stuff. And we check in with each other every day. We talk like all day in the group chat. We'll give each other advice and opinions on guys we're talking to.
Cool.
It's become a very healing experience. Yep. Like I love these girls. We might meet up next weekend. So
there you go. I admire that because you know what you want. I'm still 2.5 years out. I have no idea what I want to do with my life. I don't know whether I want to be in a relationship or not. I don't know what I want. I don't know whether I want kids. Like I don't know any of those things. Yeah. So what I'm wondering is how did you know? Did you go through a process of discovery or did you understand one day?
So I went through a process of discovery. I started talking to people, and I don't mean to be any type of way about like, I don't want to sound materialistic, sorry. But I really appreciate the relationship and the lifestyle I have with car people.
Okay.
Car people are really great to me. I hang out with them all the time. I like to do the car meets. I like to fix up my own car. The car thing is my passion.
I gotta say, she's got starlights in the roof of her car. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
And I love going to the meets. I love going to the shows. I love just one of my favorite, actually on my dating webpage or whatever, it said on there, if you prefer banging gears on the highway compared to long walks on the beach. And I mean that, like, I'm somebody who loves when I'm with somebody who also drives like a muscle car and we drive together, and that makes me happy. It's not about like some people like, oh, she only likes guys with cars. No, I'll take a guy who drives a muscle car over a guy who drives a Mercedes any day.
Sure. You
know what I mean? And if he built it, even better, so I finally figured out like, I really want somebody that's a car person that understands my love for cars.
Okay.
And then also I already know, like, I'm not picky about some things, but how somebody is kind of like what attracts me, I am pretty picky about. And I'm okay with being honest with that. Okay. I don't want to lead anybody down a road. So I'm pretty quick in the beginning to be like, hey, it's either going to, because I just know when I meet somebody, it's either going to work or it's not. I mean, yeah, there's hundreds of guys that flood my DMs, and they're like, oh, I'll treat you right. Yeah, it's great. I'm sure everybody would treat me great, but I need to like you. I need to be able to like you. So I know that I want somebody that's kind of on the same mindset too. I'm looking to do more than just be a car sale. I'm looking to invest in real estate and stuff like that. So And I've come across people who are in certain mindsets, and you can just separate those people from the rest of somebody who's just working a job, you know? So that's how I found out, just from meeting people and trying to experience those things and figure out what I actually liked and didn't like, you know?
Okay. I think that's really good advice. And to add to the hundreds of people flooding your DMs, where can people find you, and what character, like what guy are you looking for? What guy should reach out to you in your DMs?
So, I like car guys, especially if you love American muscle cars. I got my Camaro. I'm building on it right now. And, by the way, my Instagram for my car page is notguilty_SS.
Okay.
So everybody it was controversial about not guilty, but I was like, no, I stand on it. Like, I did not mean to do what I did. And I'm not guilty of murder. I did not mean to hurt somebody like that, but I was accused of being a murderer. So I stand on that, and I will, back it up any day. But it's also, it's kind of funny because I got pardoned. So anyway, I'm looking for somebody that's I love the gym. Somebody's got to be in the gym, loves cars, and is looking to progress in life more than just the basics.
I mean, and that's been a thing for me, is that I came out with no expectations or understanding of myself. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be an electrician in the woods. 2 months out, I'm flying across the country speaking.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, I'm like doing investments and I'm doing projects.
I see you traveling all the time.
Yeah. And I realized like, oh, well, there are things that I want, but I didn't realize up to that point that I could like have things that I wanted in a partner. I thought I was like, well, if somebody likes me, like that's my attention.
Yeah.
It took this whole shift in how I see other people and how I see myself. And I see you just kind of taking that lead, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I finally feel like I found myself. I finally know what I want to do with certain things. I'm not fully, I'm trying to do the real estate path. I'm just trying to figure out which path in real estate I want to do while I'm doing the car sales stuff. But right now, I know I just bought a car for Turo, just to bring in some side money. I want to buy a house by the end of the year. And I don't even know if I want to stay in Virginia. I want to be by the beach, honestly. But, if something comes along and it's great, great. If it doesn't, I'm just going to be worried about getting myself to that point where one thing I haven't had to do really is ask a man for any the last 2 years. A lot of people don't know this, but I already knew my dad, like he's got money and everything, but he's always made me figure it out, and he was actually really surprised. I saved a lot of money when I was in. I wanted to make sure when I came home, I got LASIK done. I had my front tooth actually. You too? I have a crown on there. And back then they wanted to pull my front tooth because it had trauma to it. And I was like, no, like I'm in my 20s. So came home, I got my tooth fixed. I got the LASIK, and then I got my first car, which was my first Camaro. And I was really proud of that because I was able to have the money to put down payments for all these things. Yeah. And I could have saved so much more money if I would have learned not to be in relationships where someone's going to charge my credit card $2,500 and then be stuck with all of that, which, by the way, I just paid it off the other day. So yes. So I'm like, now on though, that was a huge lesson to learn. So,
but it's one of the things that I love seeing. I love seeing people who get out of incarceration and they're probably more successful than most people their age because they've been hungry. They've been thinking about this. They've been wanting this for all those years. And like, I was always told I would struggle. Like, you're never going to be okay. You're going to be so far behind. It's going to be tough. And like, I feel like I'm doing pretty well in life, and you are too. And it's cool to see you kind of take the lead and be like, you know what? I'm going to make the best life I can.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate that with you and Sean too. Like, we all are just, we want better for ourselves. And that's why it's hard for me to really settle for somebody who doesn't want better for themselves. If I'm in a better position than you starting over with an F on my forehead, then there might be a problem. Like, if you've had no excuses, or like if you've had your life just kind of, and you've lived a basic one, I just don't think we can understand each other. Because I've wanted to be more, and I'm here because I wanted more. I could have let people tell me, oh, you'll never get a pardon, or oh, you'll never go home, or whatever. I could have listened to that, and I didn't. But one thing I just noticed, you have the Fountain Fun t-shirt on. So I was really excited about that because I was able to help this guy who just came in last week. He just got out of prison. He'd been in for 2 years, and he couldn't get approved traditionally, like through the regular banks. But the fountain fund, I was like, hey, I know a guy, Thomas Mundy, and he will get you a loan for this vehicle so you can have a car to get around. Because people don't realize when you come home, it's like, oh, they deserve da, 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 da. And then when they come home, it's like, okay, well, what are you doing to help somebody get out of a bad choice they've made?
That's kind of the life sentence. It's even if you get out of prison, there are all these barriers around employment, around education, around access to capital and funding. So the Fountain Fund, this is a shameless plug. I am on their loan review committee, but I'm not associated with them as far as a nonprofit. They're amazing. They give low interest loans to formerly incarcerated people to pay off court costs and fines, to get their driver's licenses, to get vehicles, to start businesses. Because what they found is if you give people the resources to build something, they'll build something. If you don't, they generally won't because nobody else will.
Exactly.
They're one of the best nonprofits I've ever seen. I absolutely love them.
I think the biggest thing to take from this is, okay, people make mistakes in life. Some people make bigger mistakes. Some people make small mistakes. Mm-hmm. We got caught. There are people in the world that don't get caught, and maybe they learn from it. But for the people that did get caught and for the people that had to, pay a heavy price, what are we doing to make sure that they don't make that choice?
Yeah. Because it's about public safety more than just the individual.
Yeah.
It's not just, we want to give this individual resources. It's, hey, if this individual doesn't have the skills to cope, we're not teaching the skills, we're not giving them resource, well, they're probably going to reoffend. They're probably going to hurt somebody else. But if we give them the coping skills, we train them to do better, and we give them access to resources, they're going to succeed, which means they're going to contribute to society where they've previously taken.
And that's what I think too.
I love it. Well, Blair, I'm so grateful that you drove all the way down here in your fancy Camaro with the Starlight stuff.
We'll go for a ride.
Oh, okay, now I'm excited. I got a little bit of time before my next meeting. But yeah, what would be the last thing you would want to tell people based on your experience, based on the things you've done and seen? What would be the thing you want people to know from your period of incarceration to help them get through a dark time or to help them be their best selves or make the best life for themselves?
One lesson that I'm still working on and that got me in trouble. Only do as much for other people as they would do. Don't be so quick to rush into being the best friend that you could be, the best boyfriend or girlfriend that you can be. Let other people give themselves, give the opportunity to show you that you mean something to them. Because I've been so disappointed. I've, put on, I'm such a solid friend, I feel like, and I put all of my efforts into people. And then when they don't give it back, I don't know how to deal with that. I'm like, well, why don't you want to, why don't you want me as a person to keep around? Why don't you care? Some people in the world just don't care. You can't make them care. So instead, it's like, let me take a step back and just be slow about things instead of just wanting to be this wonderful, great person in the beginning. Let me just allow other people to show me that they're great too.
I like that. One of the things that a mentor told me while I was in prison, actually, is he said, you can give to other people only what you have and give without expectation of return.
Yeah.
And I think about that in relationships where it's like, I'm not giving to you so that I can get back. I'm giving you what I have to give. In that moment, that may be a lot, that may be a little, but I'm giving it to you freely. And then if I see a pattern of you trying to use me, cool, I'm good. I've given you what I could.
And take a step back, because people will show you in the beginning who they are. And it's whether or not you believe them. And I didn't believe people in the beginning, and I just kept giving and giving and giving. And then I'm like, well, why is this not happening for me? Or why is this person treating me this way? And it's like, no, they showed me in the beginning. I didn't like.
That's it's always attributed to Oprah, but I think it was Maya Angelou who said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Believe them.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning that, but I've learned it a lot more than I think I did before. So yeah.
Well, very cool. Well, people can find you at notguilty_SS on Instagram and anywhere else, or any other projects or things you want to promote.
I mean, I have a TikTok and I have Facebook and Instagram, but those are just Blair Dacey. No E on the end of Blair, BLAIR DACEY. And no. Some people think Blair is spelled with an E. Mine is.
And you want guys who are interested in cars, people that are interested in real estate, people who are interested in criminal justice reform.
And car deals.
and car deals. She's selling cars.
If anybody needs a new vehicle, just mention this podcast and I got you.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.